So, I live in the city now, but when I was younger, I used to regularly visit my grandma's house with my dad. My cousins were almost always there too. We used to play together when I was little in that village. It was more like a smaller town really, rather than a village. When me and my cousins went to play at the park, there was always this abandoned club nearby. It used to be pretty popular back in the day, but now all the windows were broken, the door was made of glass, and almost everything was vandalized, graffiti everywhere. I was always curious about what was inside, but I never had the guts to even ask my cousins to go in there. Even during the day, the club felt so off. I don't even know why. Maybe because it was surrounded by trees. It just had this weird vibe. When I was around 13 or 14, I don't remember exactly, I had a friend who was in the same grade as me, but he moved to another country. He would visit every summer, and every time he came back, he would call me up. One summer, we were really bored, and the idea came up that we should finally go to that abandoned club. He was braver than me, so he said he would go in first because there is no way I'd have the balls to go in first. Around 10 p.m., we arrived there with our bikes. It was pitch dark, with maybe 2 or 3 lampposts spaced far apart, so the lighting was really dim. When we stood in front of the club, it felt eerie. We spent like 20 minutes just trying to gather the courage to go in. Finally, we did. We climbed over the broken glass at the door and squeezed through. Once we were inside, we turned on our phone flashlights. The place was a complete mess, with garbage bags all over the walls, some needles on the ground, which was honestly really scary to see, and the whole interior was just weird. It was a pretty big space, with these odd architecture paths that led around in circles for no reason. Me and my friend were scared shitless. We tried to stay as quiet as possible so we would not wake up some junkie or whatever else might have been living there. Then, while I was staring at the bar counter for like 5 seconds, my friend disappeared. Oh my god, my heart dropped. I did a full 360 with the flashlight, and he was gone. I yelled his name, and then something jumped up on me from behind. It was him, laughing so hard while I was having a heart attack. I was so mad but also super relieved. But while he was laughing, I suddenly heard another laugh, a laugh that was not his. I'd actually heard it at first, but did not fully register it until it clicked. That laugh was not supposed to be there. I turned my flashlight toward the sound, and there was this guy there. He must have been a hobo, I think. He was tall, but like unnaturally so. Like he was bigger than any of the doorways we had walked through to get in there. He was skinny, but like only skin and bone. He looked more alien than human. He had long, messy hair that had patches missing where he had wounds and scars. I could not even see his face properly. While he was laughing, he stood up to tower over us and started to reach out a hand toward us. I screamed and bolted out of there with my friend. We jumped on our bikes and pedaled back so hard to my grandma's house. That was seriously one of the scariest things I have ever experienced. Later that night, when we finally talked about it, we asked each other, how did we not hear him? We were dead silent. Every step made in that place was so loud. So how the hell did he get that close without making a sound? And the fact that he was laughing with us made it so much scarier. He was probably insane or something. These events occurred 2 summers ago in the Grand Teton area. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, let's call him H, was an avid outdoorsman and also served in the military. I was an ecology major and wanted to spend more time outdoors. He decided to take me on my first backpacking trip, and it would be just the 2 of us. For those who aren't familiar, the Grand Tetons are well known for their wildlife, but specifically grizzly bears. My only experience with bears up to this point was watching a little black bear cross the road from the safety of my car. Seeing grizzly country signs around every corner was not doing much to calm my nerves. First incident. My boyfriend looked like Indiana Jones. He had a machete hanging from his belt, large knives attached to each side of his pack, and bear spray strapped to his waist. The beginning of our 25-mile journey was all uphill. When in bear country, you're supposed to make noise as to not startle the wildlife by accidentally sneaking up on it. As you can imagine, going up a steep hill while carrying a 40-pound pack makes it difficult to make conversation. We were an hour in and almost at the top of the ascent. I noticed that the woods had gone completely silent, save for the rushing stream that was to the left of our trail. Silent woods are never a good sign. This usually indicates predators are nearby. At this point, I was in front of my boyfriend, and we were about to crest the hill. For the past 20 minutes, we had not said a word to each other, having been too tired to speak. We noticed the silence at the same time, and gave each other knowing glances. I came up over the top of the hill and immediately froze. Sitting not 10 feet in front of me in the middle of the trail was a grizzly bear. My husband was not aware yet as he was behind me, so I did the first thing I could think of. While still in my frozen stance, I managed to take my arm and start flinging it wildly behind me, trying to get his attention. I was too terrified to speak. The bear went from sitting to all fours, not looking away from us once. He quickly swung me around so that I was behind him, and he just started yelling. Being in the military, he knows how to yell. The grizzly was not quite fazed as it started to walk slowly towards us. At this point, I was on the verge of passing out from terror. The bear was about 5 feet in front of us when we heard a loud crack coming from the woods to our right. The bear heard it too, and he bolted towards the stream. A second crack boomed again, this time much closer than before. H said, "It's probably just some falling branches," but we both knew that was not the case. At this point, we were walking quickly up the trail in an attempt to create some distance from the grizzly and those strange noises. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up. At that same moment, H stopped moving in front of me. He turned around to look at me, and I turned to look behind me. To this day, we are not sure what we saw. Back where we were standing was a large, black and brown mass. It looked to be about 3 times bigger than the already large grizzly bear that we had seen just a few moments before. Its back was facing us, and then it stood on its back legs. It looked similar to a bear, but something about the shape was just off. At this point, it was probably stupid to run away, but that is exactly what we did. We were aware of heavy footsteps behind us, but neither of us looked back. The footsteps eventually faded. At this point, I was a mess. H was doing his best to console me. "Don't worry, this is extremely unusual. The bears usually stay away from humans. We are going to be okay. I am sure that will not happen again." That was enough to convince me to continue on the backpack. Not another hour later though, we reached a clearing where we decided to take a rest and eat a snack. About a minute after we had sat down, I noticed bushes moving in a line toward the clearing, toward us. Out of the brush comes this adolescent grizzly, who looks just as spooked as I'm sure we did, but he came straight for us. H, being the crazy nut that he is, decided to charge back at the bear while screaming with bear spray at the ready. That did the trick, and the bear ran off. All I could think was just my luck. But that was not even close to what happened the second night. Before we began our backpack, we had to let the ranger station know which trail/route we planned to take. With this information, they usually send a ranger on horseback at some point during the backpack to check on you to make sure that everything is okay. There were not many approved trails left for us to choose from, and it was just our luck that they were the most difficult. Apparently, over the 3 days that we were on those trails, we had been the sole hikers. We did not see a single other person once we were en route. Anyhow, I guess we missed the ranger who came to check on us. We had been following hoofprints the entire second day, and we had not seen any the day before. I had some foot problems, so we spent valuable daylight trying to adjust my boot/laces/socks to compensate for the pain. When we started on the trail again, we had maybe an hour or two of daylight left, and in the woods, it gets dark fast. I was exhausted. It was now dark outside, and H was the only one with a working headlamp. Mine would not even turn on for some reason. We needed to find somewhere to camp as we still needed to eat. It was freezing and the wind was blowing. It was creating a howling sound as it rushed through the trees, which made it difficult to hear H or discern any other sounds coming from the woods. After another hour of hiking through the dark, we found a clearing. Well, it was more like a bowl. It looked to be about 200 meters in diameter, with the sides being 10 meters down from the trail to the bottom of the clearing. The place was strange and we both felt it. H did not tell me how freaked he was until after we had left. There was no moonlight, so all we had was the illumination from his headlamp, our small camp stove, and the flashlight that I fished out from my pack. Half of the trees were dead/fallen just in the bowl. The vegetation everywhere else was very dense. To help alleviate my anxiety, H started playing music out of his portable speaker. This did not help much, as it just echoed off of the trees, creating a dissonance of sounds. He also thought it would ward off any predators nearby. This is when we knew our anxiety was not paranoia. The silence was back. There had not been a single bird chirp since we arrived at the clearing. We decided to turn off the music and head into the tent. As soon as we were situated in our sleeping bags, we heard deep cracks and thuds echoing from beyond the tree line. Falling trees, maybe? There had been a lot of wildfires and very little rain this season. Then we heard this massive thud. We both froze. That sound was not an echo. It came from inside the clearing. It was definitely not a falling tree. And then came another massive thud. It came from right outside our tent. We both stopped breathing. H's hand found mine, and we clung to each other. We were both paralyzed. Something dragged across the outside of our tent, making an indent as it went along. It was thin, almost like a finger. "What is it?" I whispered, shaking. "I don't know. Shouldn't be a person. We are the only ones on this side of the mountain." I was trying my hardest to stifle sobs, trying to listen to what was outside. I could hear steps, but could not decipher what it was. The steps stopped, and then the whole side of the tent was slowly pushed inwards. At this point, whatever was outside knew that we were inside, so I shined my flashlight at the side of the tent. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was the shape of a human face pressed into the tent wall. I could make out the nose and an open mouth. Each time they breathed, it made the tent around their mouth billow in and out. H said "fuck that" and pulled a Glock out from his sleeping bag. He cocked it, and the sound shattered the silence. The face pulled back, and we heard fast footsteps heading towards the edge of the clearing. We did not leave the tent until the sun was shining the next morning. The first thing that we noticed was the smell of urine. We came out of the tent and looked around. Whoever it was had peed on our coals we had left in the fire, leaving a disgusting stench of evaporated pee. Footprints surrounded our tent, circling around multiple times. Muddy handprints decorated the outside of our tent. We think it was mud anyway. Wildlife is not the most dangerous thing in the backcountry. Okay, X. I've been wanting to tell you this for a while. For some background, I work in a petrol station located on the highway. Mostly night shifts, 3 p.m. to midnight, so I'm used to the weird, the creepy, and the downright paranormal. But this... It's a normal shift. People are coming and going. It's about 7 o'clock. Things are dark, and the store is slowing down a bit. I am behind the console area. I look to my left and lock eyes. Not that I could, mind you, with a woman. She is frail, thin, and elderly, with wrinkled skin and giant fly-eyed sunglasses on that cover half of her face. I immediately get the jitters from her. She walks slowly to the door. I had to manually make it open to let her in, as the auto doors did not pick her up. She makes her way to the console. She stares at me. I can't tell. She is still wearing those creepy sunnies. "Can you come outside and take a look at my car? I think something's wrong." Her voice is soft in volume, but deep and resonating, like I felt it more than I heard it. I decline, and then explain that I cannot leave as I am the only staff member on site. Okay then. She walks off to the toilet. "Now, Here is where alarm bells started going off. I am serving other customers, stragglers here and there. She comes out of the bathroom after 5 minutes. She walks over to me again. There is no toilet paper. Could you come and get me some? Alarm bells go off. Something in my head says not to go out there. I get some staff toilet paper from behind the console. Here you go, ma'am. Her demeanor is sour, or as far as I can tell with those fucking sunnies. Okay. She walks back into the toilet. About another 5 minutes later, she walks back out and wanders around the shop. I watch her and notice she flicks her head in my direction every now and then, like she is scanning me. She walks to the coffee machine, then calls out to me. Her voice is louder this time, but it feels more like a knife this time, shrill and freezing. There is no milk in here. Can you replace it? I would like a coffee. I know I should do it, but fuck. Every something is fucking up alarm in my body and brain was screaming not to. I decline and say I cannot leave the console at this hour of the night. She gets visibly annoyed, saying how shitty my customer service is. She threatens to contact my manager if I do not come out and change the milk. I decline and apologize. I even offer the manager's number. She tries 3 more times to get me out over the next 20 minutes. She finally gives up and walks off, glaring at me through the windows as she rounds the shop out of sight. The rest of the shift goes by without a hitch. No creepy things, surprisingly mellow and normal. I still have the sense of dread in my stomach. I swap over and leave at 12:30 a.m. I am walking to my car, about 50 meters away in the parking lot. As I get closer, the fucking glasses, scarf and gloves she was wearing are folded neatly, the glasses resting on top in a pile on the ground by my driver's side door. I look around, sense of dread intensifying. Quick as a flash, I unlock my car, jump in, and lock it again. There is no time to relax. I start my car and gun it out of there. I have never been so fearful in my life. That sense of dread never left. I got home and needed a few drinks before I could loosen up enough to even consider going to sleep. How tall is this Bigfoot? This is a rough size of the Bigfoot that I saw. I drew the picture and then went on Google Earth and took a picture of where I saw it. I was driving westbound on Highway 152, approaching Casa de Fruta, CA. This is a road I've traveled back and forth on at various hours throughout my life. I have traveled it at least 500 to 1,000 times over the past 12 years. I have been visiting and reading BFRO reports since 2004 or so, and I've done a lot of exploring around my area, mostly at night with friends. I stopped exploring via night hikes during my early 20s after a few close encounters with wildlife, boars and mountain lions. Oftentimes, we would go out in search of anything paranormal that we could find, which was typically never much. A few odd things have happened, but nothing involving a Bigfoot. On this particular drive, I was heading from my city, CA, to this other city, CA, to visit my family. I am obviously redacting them. I happened to be traveling late at night this time around. If you look at the map, I was on the stretch of highway between the fire station in that area and the small town of Casa de Fruta, heading westbound towards Casa de Fruta. The Bigfoot began stepping towards my car and walking from the dirt onto the eastbound highway as my car passed on the westbound side. I am not good at judging distances, but I would say it was about 50 feet away. It was dark outside, and my headlights ignited its body as I quickly passed. I was probably traveling around 70 to 75 miles per hour, so it all happened very quickly. There was almost no traffic around, except 2 to 4 cars, and they were all at least half a mile apart. One was eastbound in front of me, and the other was westbound, a ways behind me. I remember looking in my rearview mirror, trying to see if I could see anything, but I couldn't. I lightly hit the brakes to see if my lights would light anything up, but they didn't. I considered turning around, but there was nowhere to turn around except the Casa de Fruta exit, and by the time I would have gotten back to that area, I thought it would have likely been gone. I just continued on driving and said to myself, well, I finally saw one. As I said earlier, I wrote down how it looked with greater detail in my book as the experience was still fresh in my head when compared to today. What I can recall right now about its appearance was that it was shorter than I expected. or perhaps I just wasn't close enough. What did shock me a little was how wide it was. It had a very large and wide torso, large wide arms, large wide legs, and a small, albeit wide head. I recall it had a slight cone shape to the head. The fur was a dark orange color. It sort of looked like it was wearing dirty rags. I assumed the fur was matted. Its face was not free of fur. In fact, I could hardly make out any features. I could not see a mouth or nose. I only saw its eyes. The eyes did not glow, but had a very light, reflective quality to them. I would describe the reflective quality as silver in color, and it's hard to say what the facial expression was through the fur, but it immediately struck me as stern. It must have been about 2 a.m., but it easily could have been around midnight or 1 a.m., maybe even as late as 3:30 a.m. It was dark outside, partially cloudy if I recall correctly, but I could be wrong. It was definitely not raining. If there was a moon out, it was not full, as the fields around this area are fairly well lit under a full moon. The only thing that really lit up the Sasquatch was my not so bright headlights. It should also be noted that the year could have been 2016, 2017, or 2018. However, it was more likely that it was late 2017 or early to mid 2018, as I spent most of 2018 writing a book, and I used this experience in the book. At the time, it still felt fresh in my mind. Other details: Casa de Fruta, Highway 152. As mentioned in the report, it was just me in the car, but a couple of other cars were on the highway that night. Here is the picture again. I got a few stories, and they are all at my grandma's house. I live in the same building as my grandma. We live at the 6th floor. She lives at the 2nd one. If something happens, she can just call and we are there in a few seconds. Everyone has always been sure that the spirit of my grandpa I never met is there. Never did something spooky or incredible. When I was little and playing with Lego, I would get the feeling of being watched, and if I couldn't find some pieces, they would just be on the coffee table after a few minutes, even if I did not find them myself. Sometimes, his old radio would just start playing, but this was only when there was the Police Greatest Hits CD inside. This started happening as soon as I listened to that CD for the first time and loved it. I feel secure when at my grandma's house. The place is peaceful and such. This happened a year ago. It's like 2 a.m. The telephone is ringing. It's the old woman from the 3rd floor. She says she heard screaming from my grandma's house. We rush there to find my grandma on the sofa watching TV, obviously freaked out. We ask her what is wrong. She does not want to talk about it. We think she got robbed since another woman got mugged a few months before at another floor. Nothing is missing. After some time, she bursts out crying. She tells us she woke up feeling watched and saw a pale greenish face a few inches from her face. She said it looked really old, almost rotting. When she screamed, the face disappeared. I told her about sleep paralysis and such. She agreed it could have been that and asked me to sleep at hers. Since it's something I often do, I accept. I sleep in her bed. Now, her bathroom and her bedroom are facing. Since the doors were open, it was the last summer and really hot. You could actually see the mirror reflecting the bathroom, the entrance, and the bedroom. I wake up to piss. I glance at the mirror while walking towards the bathroom. I see the same face again, not facing me, but a few inches away from my grandma's face, looking at her. I turn around. The face is gone. Now, this is obviously not sleep paralysis. I spend the rest of the night with my laptop, looking out for the face. The next day, I tell her about it. We agree it's not sleep paralysis if I could see it too. She says the face looked kinda familiar. We dig up some family photos and shit like that. I cannot find shit, but at some point my grandma screams, "I got it." She says it looked like a man she knew years ago when she had a plastics factory. When my mom gets home, tried to call him. Nothing. While they tried to contact his family, I look up his name on the internet. Apparently, he was some sort of a big guy with a racing car collection of like 300 plus vehicles. People on forums talking about him, even international forums. Still, cannot find shit. My mother calls me and my grandma at some point. She said she called her son and told her the guy died back in 2008. They come over to our house to get a coffee, and that's about it. Never seen the face again. Another night, sleeping at my grandma's because her apartment is right next to the road, so white sound. Also, it's more peaceful. Be in my bed chilling with my laptop. I suddenly feel the urge to take a look at the road. I go to balcony too, and just stay here chilling. The road is full of hookers. I see one standing at the corner, just looking at nothing. I look up in the direction she is staring at. There is some tall guy, probably 2 meters tall, in the distance. He walks like a fucking robot, or one of those old walking toys. It's really uncanny. I also cannot see shit, because he is walking away from all the light sources. When he's at like 5 meters away from the hooker, she screams and runs away. As soon as she screamed, the guy froze in place and did not move for a good 5 minutes. Then he snapped out of it and ran away too. The same thing happened a week later. Now, there were almost no hookers left, and the owner of a shop nearby installed cameras. A friend of my dad's would babysit me sometimes when I was little. My mom was not in the picture, and he used to tell me a story that scares the absolute shit out of me to this day. My dad's friend, I will call him Bob, is driving a rig out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Oregon. He has to make the delivery by the following morning, so he decides to just drive through the night. It's like 1 in the morning. No one else is out on the roads. He has not seen another car in probably 100 miles. He is literally in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, the whole entire sky lights up. It lights up instantly, just like daylight. Bob fucking slams on the brakes. He has no idea what the hell is going on. Everything stays lit up for a good solid 10 seconds. He can see everything. Whatever is happening, it's not lightning. It doesn't stop or flicker at all. Bob hunkers down, anticipating imminent nuclear disaster. Suddenly, the sky goes dark again. There is no sound. There is no blast wave. He sits there in the middle of the road, waiting for almost 5 minutes, then decides to keep on going. He just figures it was a meteor or something. He goes about 2 miles up the road and sees a car with its flashers on, stopped in the middle of the road. He stops a good distance away from it. There is not enough room to go around it. The front end of the car is crumpled, like it hit something. Bob figures they probably hit a deer that got spooked whenever the meteor went overhead and ran into the road. He gets out of the cab and goes to see if the driver is okay. The driver is sitting on the ground by the driver's side door. He has his knees up and is resting his head on his arms. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Bob calls out. He stops about 10 feet away for seemingly no reason. Something about the whole situation just feels weird. Bob is one of those guys that always listens to his gut, so he stays put. "God, my head is killing me," the guy says, but he does not lift his head up, so it's muffled. "Did you hit a deer?" Bob asks. He's getting more and more uneasy. Something is wrong, but he still cannot figure out what exactly it is. The guy says he thinks he might have hurt his head. He asks Bob to please help him. Bob takes a step forward, but his instincts are going apeshit. He looks at everything again. That is when he notices it. The fucking car is all wrong. It looks like what someone thinks a car looks like. It has all the right pieces, but there is nothing extra, if that makes sense. Bob says it looked like a cheap Hot Wheels knockoff. It just looked wonky and wrong. He looks around at the back of the car and realizes that not only is there no license plate, there's not even a trunk. It's just one solid piece of material with tail lights put in it. There is no manufacturer or model names. Bob knows cars, and this thing is nothing he's ever seen before. From where he is standing, he can see there is no tailpipe or even hubcaps. It's just the shape of a car. He starts to back up, and the guy asks him for help again. Bob tells him he cannot help him, and that he will call a tow truck when he gets to the next town. The guy lifts his head and looks at Bob. He tells him he thinks he might have a concussion. Something is really, really wrong with the guy's face. But again, it takes a second for Bob to figure it out. The next part is exactly how Bob described it. Everything on the men's face was where it should have been, in their normal positions. He looked totally normal, except for the fact that his eyes and mouth were on upside down. Bob goes apeshit and sprints back to his rig. He climbs in, locks the door, just in time for the men to slam into the door behind him. How the fuck did he get there so fast? He knocks on the glass and smiles at Bob, but because his mouth is upside down, it looks like he is screaming. He tells Bob to open the door so he can come in. Bob just fucking floors it. He does not care if he hits the guy or not. His truck easily pushes the car out of the way. Whatever it is light, and it makes no sound when he hits it. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you.